Right now, there is someone who feels far more for you than they have ever said. They carry it quietly, they hide it well. And if you have been sensing a strange pull lately, if one face keeps returning to your mind for no clear reason, this may be why. Listen carefully, because this is not just about attraction. It is not a random crush. It is not one of those feelings that appears fast and fades even faster. This is something deeper, heavier, harder to ignore. Somewhere in your life there is a person who thinks about you in silence, who feels connected to you in a way that unsettles them, excites them, and at the same time makes them hold back. They want to move closer, but something tells them they should not. And that tension is exactly why this bond feels so intense. Stay with me, because what makes a connection powerful is not always ease. Sometimes it is the fact that it cannot fully happen. Not yet, maybe not the way either of you imagined. And when that happens, the feeling does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes quieter, stronger, harder to explain. So if someone has been lingering in your thoughts, if their energy seems to reach you even in silence, there may be more truth in that than you realize. And once you understand what this really means, the way you look at this connection may never be the same again. There is someone who keeps returning to your mind without warning, and that does not happen for no reason. You may try to brush it off. You may tell yourself it is only memory, only curiosity, only imagination. But deep down, part of you already knows this bond is real. It is not loud. It is not dramatic on the surface. It is steady, hidden, and strangely persistent. This person feels pulled toward you in a way they did not plan for. At first you may have only been someone they noticed. Then you became someone they respected, someone they trusted, someone they felt safe around. And before they could fully understand what was happening, you became the one person they could not stop thinking about. That is what makes this so difficult. The problem is not that the feeling is weak. The problem is that the feeling is strong enough to disturb the life they have built. There are reasons this connection seems restricted. Timing, broken distance, responsibilities, commitments, fear, family pressure, social expectations, personal boundaries. Sometimes one of you is unavailable in a way that makes the whole situation heavier than either of you wants to admit. So no, this is not about a lack of love. It is about the weight of consequences. And if this already feels personal, keep listening, because the silence between two people can hide more emotion than words ever could. When a connection feels forbidden, many people assume it must be shallow or unhealthy. But often the opposite is true. The bonds that shake people the most are rarely casual. They do not begin out of boredom. They are not built from loneliness alone. They grow out of recognition, the kind that hits both the heart and the mind at the same time. This person did not sit down and decide to feel this way about you. It happened slowly, then suddenly. One moment you were part of their world, and the next you became the thought they kept trying to set aside and never could. What makes this painful is that the obstacle is not emotional emptiness. The obstacle is life itself. They wake up and think of you, then remind themselves why they should not. They replay your conversations and catch themselves smiling, then pull back as if that reaction itself is dangerous. They imagine being closer to you, and then they shut the door on that thought before it can grow. Not because they feel nothing, but because feeling too much would force them to face truths they are not prepared to deal with. For some, that truth is another relationship. For others, it is duty, family, religion, image, history, or a version of themselves they have tried hard to maintain. So they choose restraint, they choose distance, they choose silence. But silence is not the same as peace. And that detail changes everything. A quiet person can still feel everything very deeply. In fact, sometimes the strongest emotions are the ones that never get spoken out loud. This person may look calm from the outside. They may seem in control, focused, even unaffected. But inside, it is not calm at all. It is push and pull. Move closer, then step back. Want more, then deny it. Imagine the truth, then hide from it. That is why the energy between you can feel so strange. One day it feels present, the next day it feels distant. At times you may feel them strongly, even when there has been no message, no sign, no contact at all. And that is because buried emotions do not simply vanish, they remain active under the surface. They wait, they build pressure. The more a person resists what they feel, the more that feeling can grow in the dark. That is why thoughts of them may come out of nowhere. That is why your mood may shift without a clear cause. That is why a quiet moment can suddenly feel full of unfinished tension. Hidden emotions have a way of shaping a situation, even when nobody says a word, and the world may only see their composed face, while privately, they are carrying your presence through ordinary days, through work, through routine, through moments where they wish they could forget but do not. If this sounds familiar, do not click away, because the next part explains why distance has not erased what is between you. You matter more than is comfortable for them. That is the truth underneath all of this. If you meant very little, they would have moved on already. If this were only attraction, time and space would have softened it. But this does not behave like a simple crush. It stays, it follows, it returns, even when life becomes busy, even when responsibilities pile up, even when logic tries to take control. Something unfinished keeps pulling them back toward the feeling. They remember how easy it felt to be understood by you. They remember how natural certain conversations felt. They remember small moments that should have been ordinary, and yet carried far more meaning than they were supposed to. And that is exactly what unsettles them. Once a person feels deeply seen, they cannot unknow that experience. Many people think distance means someone cares less, but sometimes distance exists because the feeling is too powerful. They know that one honest step toward you could begin something irreversible. They sense that if they stop pretending, they may no longer be able to return to the life they had before, and they are not ready to tear apart what they have carefully built, even if that life no longer fully fits who they are becoming. So they choose control over truth, structure over emotion, familiar discomfort over uncertain freedom. But suppression has a price. What gets pushed down does not disappear. It changes form. It turns into restlessness, distraction, emotional numbness in places that once felt stable. And little by little, the life they were protecting starts to feel less convincing. You may already be changing because of this connection too. That is something people often miss. They focus so much on what the other person feels that they forget to notice what has awakened inside themselves. Since meeting this person, your standards may have shifted. What you tolerate may not feel acceptable anymore. What once seemed enough may now feel shallow. You may find it harder to settle for attention without depth, for affection without presence, for company without emotional truth. That is not an accident. This bond has shown you something. It has shown you what it feels like when a connection reaches beneath the surface. And once that happens, you cannot easily go back to pretending that less is enough. This is bigger than wanting someone. It is about waking up to yourself. Some relationships enter your life to build a future with you. Others arrive to reveal something hidden inside you first. This kind of connection often belongs to that second path. It may still grow into more one day. It may not. But before it becomes anything external, it changes something internal. You came into each other's lives at a moment when both of you were ready, in different ways, to see what was missing. You reflect parts of each other that had not been fully faced. You show them what authenticity feels like. They show you what depth feels like. That is why the attraction can feel beautiful and confusing at the same time. And if you have ever wondered why letting go feels so difficult, this is part of the reason. You are not only attached to a person, you are attached to what this connection revealed. That is why logic alone cannot solve it. You can tell yourself 100 times that it is complicated, unrealistic, inconvenient, or impossible, and still feel it sitting quietly under the surface. Because what you are holding is not just desire, it is recognition, it is clarity, it is the memory of feeling emotionally understood in a way that changed your perspective. And on their side, something similar may be happening. They may never say your name out loud. They may continue acting normal. They may focus on work, family, routine, and everything expected of them. Yet somewhere beneath that surface, you remain a measure they compare things against. Not because they want drama, but because once they felt something real, the parts of life that are only functional start to feel thinner. This is why the bond continues to feel unfinished. It is not only about two people wanting each other, it is about two lives standing near the edge of change. And change is frightening when it asks for honesty. So what happens instead? Delay, excuses, inner debate, mixed signals, silent watching, emotional nearness followed by sudden distance. If you have been confused by the back and forth, understand this. It does not always mean their feelings are unclear. Sometimes it means their feelings are clear, and the consequences are what terrify them. Big difference. Hold on to that, because it may stop you from blaming yourself for something that was never caused by your lack of worth. This connection is not asking you to put your life on pause, That part matters. Deep feelings do not mean you must suffer to prove they are real. A meaningful bond does not require you to shrink, chase, beg, or sit frozen in longing while waiting for another person to become brave. What it asks is something more mature and more difficult. It asks you to understand what has been awakened in you and to honor it without losing yourself. It shows you the kind of emotional honesty your heart responds to. It shows you the kind of depth that nourishes rather than drains you. It reminds you that love should not demand confusion as a permanent condition. What comes next cannot be forced. It cannot be rushed by desire, fixed by overthinking, or controlled by trying to read every sign. A bond like this only opens fully when truth becomes stronger than fear. Until then, it remains in that painful in-between place, not gone, not fully present, still alive in thought, in feeling, in quiet moments where something real can be sensed but not yet lived. And as time moves on, the tension inside them will likely grow. The same is true for you, though in a different way. Once awareness appears, it becomes harder to return to sleep. What used to fit no longer fits so easily. What used to satisfy no longer satisfies in the same way. And eventually, something has to shift. Maybe externally, maybe internally, but something always shifts. For them, the process often starts quietly, not with a dramatic confession, not with a sudden life change. It starts as a crack in the image they have been maintaining. Roles that once felt natural begin to feel heavy. Responsibilities they once carried without question begin to feel restrictive. Emotional habits that seemed safe begin to feel empty. You are not the cause of that crack. You are the light that made it visible. That is why this connection can feel threatening to them. It challenges the carefully built version of their life, and truth has a way of doing that. Truth does not always arrive to comfort. Sometimes it arrives to expose what has gone out of alignment. Many people are not ready for that the first time they feel it. So they delay. They explain it away. They call it a phase. They tell themselves it will fade if ignored. But deep bonds rarely disappear through avoidance. They usually build pressure. That is why cycles happen. Closeness, then distance, warmth, then withdrawal, presence, then silence. It is not always a game. Sometimes it is the visible shape of an invisible struggle. They are standing between the self they used to be and the self they are slowly becoming. And on your side, another kind of growth is happening. You are learning the difference between intensity and true alignment. You are learning that not every strong feeling is meant to be chased, but every strong feeling can teach you something important. That lesson alone can change the rest of your life. Little by little, you may notice that shallow attention no longer excites you the way it once did. You may feel less interested in outside validation, less willing to make yourself smaller just to keep someone else comfortable, less patient with connections that offer only half presence. That is growth. This bond, whether complete or incomplete, is sharpening your intuition. It is showing you how your heart actually responds when something feels real. And that awareness has value regardless of the final outcome. Whether this relationship becomes long-term, arrives later, or never fully takes shape in the world, part of its purpose is already being fulfilled. It has widened your emotional awareness. It has forced you to ask better questions. What do I really want? What feels true? What no longer works for me? Why am I drawn to depth over comfort now? These are not small changes. They can redirect an entire life. Many people move through years accepting what looks good from the outside while feeling quietly empty inside. Then one connection enters and changes the standard forever. That may be what happened here. So yes, the timing may feel unfair. You may ask why something so meaningful would appear at a moment when it cannot easily unfold. But timing is not always punishment. Sometimes it is preparation. Sometimes two people meet not to unite immediately, but to become more honest versions of themselves first. Without that growth, even the strongest connection can collapse under fear, habit, or old emotional patterns. And that is why rushing the story too early can damage what was meant to teach you. So the real question is not only whether they love you in silence. The deeper question is what you will do with the truth this bond has already shown you. For them, the challenge is whether they are willing to live honestly, even if honesty costs them comfort. For you, the challenge is whether you can respect yourself enough not to live in constant waiting. Patience here does not mean placing your life on hold. It means trusting your own path while allowing reality to reveal itself through actions, not fantasies. Keep moving, keep choosing your own growth. Keep building a life that does not depend on someone else finally making a decision. If this connection is meant to become something real and lasting, it will only happen when both people can meet fully, openly, and without hiding. Half effort will not be enough. Secret feelings alone will not be enough. Emotional depth without courage is still incomplete. And even if this never becomes the shared life you once imagined, it is not meaningless. It has already changed your inner compass. It has already shown you the cost of self-abandonment and the value of self-respect. That is not a loss. That is a beginning, and when clarity comes, you will not need to force it. You will see it in choices, in consistency, in truth that no longer needs to whisper. Stay with this idea, because the next part may be exactly what you needed to hear. One of the hardest parts of a complicated bond is the risk of losing yourself while trying to understand it, trying to decode every silence, trying to assign meaning to every pause, trying to live on crumbs of possibility. But the moment your energy starts returning to you, everything changes. You stop chasing signs. You stop searching for proof in tiny details. You notice how peaceful you feel when you choose yourself first. You notice how much clearer your mind becomes when you stop making their confusion your full-time emotional burden. This is where your power returns. A true connection should not require you to abandon your identity to keep it alive. Real emotion does not ask you to remain in pain so you can prove it mattered. That understanding is important no matter where this road leads. Meanwhile, on their side, the tension keeps building. They are slowly seeing the difference between the self that follows expectation and the self that feels most alive in your presence. That contrast can be postponed, but not erased. People can avoid hard conversations. They can delay choices. They can hide inside routine. But eventually, they still have to face themselves. And when that moment comes, it often arrives quietly, through emptiness where certainty used to be, through discomfort in places that once felt safe, through a growing awareness that something essential has been left unlived. If they are meant to move toward truth, they will. If they are not, that truth will also reveal itself. Either way, your answer will come, not through guessing, through reality. There may come a moment when they realize the life they protected no longer feels like home. A moment when all the careful reasons, all the explanations, all the self-control begin to crack under the weight of what they have refused to face. If that moment comes, it will not be because you chased them into it. It will be because the distance between who they are and who they want to be became impossible to ignore. But whether that happens tomorrow, much later, or never in the way you hoped, your task remains the same. Do not betray your own peace for an unfinished story. Let this bond refine you, not consume you. Let it teach you discernment, not dependence. Let it deepen your standards, not trap you in fantasy. You were not meant to become smaller inside this experience. You were meant to become clearer, stronger, more honest with yourself. And if you feel the truth of this, then listen to this part very carefully. You do not need to force what is real. What is real reveals itself. It comes forward in time, in action, in brave choices, in steady presence. If someone truly cannot ignore what they feel, eventually silence will cost them more than honesty. And if they continue choosing fear, that too is an answer. Not the answer you wanted, maybe, but still an answer that can set you free. So breathe. Release the need to solve every mystery tonight. Some truths unfold in motion, not in obsession. This connection entered your life for a reason. Maybe to awaken them. Maybe to awaken you. Maybe both. Maybe the story is not over. Maybe the form of it will change. But what has already happened matters. You have felt something that broke through numbness. You have seen what emotional depth looks like. You have recognized that your heart is capable of more than surface-level affection, more than convenience, more than polite, almost love. That awareness is powerful. Protect it. Build from it. Let it shape the kind of future you now know you deserve. And if this person is truly carrying you in silence, then the truth will keep working on them in the dark, until they either rise to meet it or turn away from it completely. Both paths lead to clarity. Until then, live fully. Do not make an altar out of uncertainty. Do not pause your becoming for someone else's hesitation. Love, when it is real, should eventually move toward truth. And if it does not, then let the lesson become your freedom. Because the deepest purpose of this connection may not be to leave you waiting. It may be to return you to yourself with sharper eyes, stronger boundaries, and a heart that no longer accepts what is only half there. If this spoke to something you have been feeling but could not explain, hold on to it. Not as a fantasy, but as a reminder. What is meant for you will ask for courage, yes, but it will also ask for honesty. And in the end, honesty changes everything.